Right now, what is your part in moving students from school to school with the school closures?
So a committee of people from the school counseling office and the social and emotional learning department got together and created a framework, some strategies, some ideas. We looked at trust-based relational intervention, the change model, the neurosequential model for educators, where we talk about regulate, relate, and reason. So if you think about the brain, it develops from the bottom up and the inside out. And the very first part of the brain is regulation. It's the brain stem. And when change happens, we throw people into a sense of, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And so our idea was to create this toolkit so that then counselors and administrators could look at that toolkit, tailor make it around the needs of their specific community, and create some strategies. School counselors help children through change every day, every kind of change. And we have procedures and plans for transition from elementary to middle and middle to high school. So we capitalized on that knowledge that we had, and we created a framework. So tiers 1, 2, 3, and then 4. Tier 1 being universal support, so classroom lessons, no place for hate coalitions. Some of the counselors have come up with their own great ideas, like one school is going to provide a summer orientation camp for students transitioning from one school to the next. And then we think about the kiddos that may need an additional layer of support, tier 2 intervention, which is like small group intervention. A little more time and attention to the needs. And so we created some supports on that level. And then tier 3, when students are receiving individualized counseling or who've been referred to services like special education, 504, or to outside therapy, mental health resources, we don't want that to get lost in the mix. So we're providing opportunities for counselor-to-counselor engagement. So counselors can meet with each other, go through their list of students that are receiving those higher tiers of service to make sure that that level of service continues. Our main goal is to be able to support families, staff members, and students through change, because with change comes loss, but also possibilities. Our school district has 80,000 students. I'm not certain what the exact number is in terms of school change. I will tell you that school change is a domino effect. So while we talk about 4 schools, it affects more than 4 schools. And so we are kind of providing an overarching support for all of our counselors to understand the processes, remind them about the change cycle, to review strategies for supporting people through grief, because when a school community comes apart, you're losing a family. So supporting them and making sure that we're honoring people's feelings, meeting them where they are, and providing the appropriate level of support. School counselors are our boots on the ground. They know the children better than we do. They have the relationships, they've built the trust, and they will consult with us regarding those cases. So some children will have more difficulty with change than others, and we support our counselors with resources and training so that they can support the families. It's pretty expected that with this level of change, you would have some children that would have some issues. So I think I said earlier this morning when we were discussing school change and how best to support people is we work really hard to create school communities so they feel like families. And when you take a family apart, you can expect people to have emotions about it, feelings about it. So our goal is to assess the need, both kind of in the community and individually, and then provide the appropriate level of support for children. We provided, along with Dr. Terry Wood, who is the trust-based relational intervention and brain coordinator for our district, we've provided some family sessions and family community circles to build connections and trust, to give them strategies for how do you create this sense of this honoring their feelings, and helping them understand that there's a plan moving forward so that they'll be okay. So Dr. Dan Siegel talks about how to create that sense of security through helping children feel seen, soothed, and secure. And we talk about with parents what that can look like. So if a child is having some behavioral issues and changing, sleep patterns are changing or eating patterns are changing, interests in things that they love are changing, how to help them help regulate their kids through some just basic movement, good nutrition, listening, just creating time and space to hear them, so that then we can, when the parent comes to us and says, this is what's happening, we can then help follow up with, here's some resources, here's some strategies to use. We do a lot of mindfulness in our school district, and we know that movement and mindfulness are very powerful. We use something called the check engine plate, which helps us communicate with our kids about our feelings. So it's basically 3 colors on a paper plate with a little arrow. And when you're in the green, that means that you are regulated, you are relating well, and you are using your logical brain to make decisions. But if you're blue, you're feeling kind of low and sluggish, what strategies can you use to move yourself back into the green? And if you're red, which means overly excited or upset, what strategies you can use to then calm yourself to get back into that green space. We talk to parents about the best place to parent from is the green space, but we're also human, and families are experiencing a sense of loss. So how do we help them so that they can help their children? And how do we help our staff members so that they can help their students? I think we'll be providing support for a long time. And actually parents have asked for that, like continuing to provide family sessions, continuing to talk about how do we take these traditions from one school community and merge them with our new school community. Or in some cases where students are going to a lot of different campuses, how do we make sure that the needs of those students have been communicated and that the level of service continues as seen appropriate.
What's happening to kids in their minds when this is happening, when they're so young?
So it varies greatly by just as you said, their developmental age. Some students who are 5th graders were already anticipating a transition, and we're going through some transition activities, like we do school visits. And I know that school visits are being provided to the students who will be attending new schools. We also do community circles to build a sense of connection and trust. We've had school counselors meet, and the school counselors from the receiving schools visit with the students. That's going to continue. The schools have come together and created scenarios and activities. For instance, at Brook Elementary a couple of weeks ago, Lindergo Valley and Brook combined their catch night, which is a health and wellness night. So they're doing things already to kind of provide that sense of being secure and seen and soothed. Some of the things that the counselors have planned are, we do something called the No Place for Hate coalitions, and there are 3 activities done at every school every year. And the schools are coming together and doing those No Place for Hate activities collectively. So again, we have to listen. We have to understand, and we rely on teachers, we rely on administrators and families to let us know how their kids are and where their kids are, because the needs are going to vary greatly. Some kids will move through change real smoothly, and others will need a lot of support. So we're constantly assessing that.
And how do you think this will benefit communities that are impacted in the future?
So our hope is that by providing new environments that have kind of state-of-the-art equipment and classroom environments, that students will learn in kind of an innovative, relevant way. We want learning to be more hands-on. We want students to have more voice in their learning. And so that's sort of the desired outcome. I will say in terms of counseling, when we have very small schools and very few administrators, an administrator and perhaps a half-time AP, the school counselor often has to take up some of those administrative roles. And when a school is a little bit larger and there's a full-time assistant principal, the school counselor then can really implement a comprehensive school counseling program. So that's one benefit to having the schools change. However, we want to make sure that people understand. We know that this is difficult, and we want to be there. We want to listen. We want them to know that they are heard, and that we will be responsive to their needs.